Welcome to another monthly portfolio update. If you are stopping by for the first time, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. In this video, I will share with you how much I invested in my taxable account in April, how many shares I bought, and the value of my portfolio at the end of April. But as always, before I continue, a quick disclaimer. The information that I'm sharing is not financial advice. Before you invest in anything, please do your own research and make sure that you only invest in things that you understand. With that being said, I will dive right into my portfolio update. I will start with a quick recap of my March portfolio to show you the value of the portfolio and how many shares I had before the beginning of April. The total value of my portfolio at the end of March was $121,248.88. $121,094.30 was the market value of my investments, and $154.58 was a cash amount. At the end of March, the total unrealized profit of my portfolio was $35,349.11. This was plus 41.23%. These are my holdings: 2 Vanguard ETFs and 2 BlackRock ETFs. VCN is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the Canadian market. I had 122 shares of VCN at the end of March. VFV is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the S&P 500 index. This is the Canadian version of a VOO. I had 308 shares of VFV at the end of March. XEQT is a BlackRock ETF. This is an all-in-one equity ETF that holds Canadian equities, US equities, developed market equities outside of North America, and emerging market equities. If you want to hold a single equity ETF that is globally diversified, you might consider looking into XEQT or its Vanguard equivalent, VEQT. I had 680 shares of XEQT at the end of March. XUU is a BlackRock ETF that tracks the US total stock market, and I had 370 shares of XUU at the end of March. I will now show you how much I invested in April and how many shares I bought. I bought 2 shares of VCN. The cost per share was $69.23. The total cost, $138.45. This is 9% of the amount that I invested in April. I bought 4 shares of VFV. The cost per share was $166.75. The total cost, $666.98. This is 44% of the amount that I invested in April. I bought 10 shares of XEQT. The cost per share was $41.87. The total cost, $418.65. This is 28% of the amount that I invested in April. I bought 4 shares of XUU. The cost per share was $68.83. The total cost, $275.33. This is 18% of the amount that I invested in April. In total, I bought 20 shares, all the ETFs combined, and the amount that I invested in April was $1,499.41. This is $210.03 less than the amount that I invested in March. As you can see, in March, I invested $1,709.44, and in April, I invested $1,499.41. The difference is minus $210.03. The total value of my portfolio at the end of April was $131,449.55. $131,333.30 was the market value of my investments, and $116.25 was a cash amount. At the end of April, the total unrealized profit of my portfolio was $44,088.70. This was plus 50.53%. As of April the 30th, I had 124 shares of VCN, 384 shares of VFV, 690 shares of XEQT, and 374 shares of XUU. Alright, let's now take a look at some quick details about each of the positions. I will start with VCN. The closing market price on April the 30th was $69.08. The quantity of shares that I had, 124. The average price, $44.35. The book value, which is how much I have invested in VCN, was $5,500.27. The market value was $8,565.92. This was 6.52% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for VCN was $3,065.65. This was 55.74%. Next, we have VFV. The closing market price on April the 30th was $173.81. The quantity of shares that I had, 384. The average price, $113.51. The book value was $43,590.32. The market value was $66,743.04. This was a 50.77% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for VFV was a $23,152.72. This was a 53.11%. Then we have XEQT. The closing market price on April the 30th was a $42.38. The quantity of shares that I had, 690. The average price, $29.05. The book value was at $20,048.04. The market value was at $29,242.20. This was a 22.25% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for XEQT was $9,194.16. This was a 45.86%. Finally, we have XUU. The closing market price on April the 30th was $71.61. The quantity of shares that I had, 374. The average price, $48.41. The book value was $18,105.97. The market value was $26,782.14. This was 20.37% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for XOU was $8,676.17. This was 47.92%. Unlike March, April was a great month for stocks. My portfolio went from being up of 41.23% at the beginning of the month to 50.53% at the end of the month. This is an increase of 9.30% in a single month, and the amount that I invested in April was roughly $1,500. As for the S&P 500 index, it returned 10.50% in April, largely driven by the rally we saw in tech stocks. A monthly double-digit gain for the S&P 500 index isn't unprecedented, but it's rare. Over the past 50 years, April 2026 is only the 13th occasion on which this has occurred. And this is the first time the S&P 500 has gained at least 10% on a single month since the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a perfect illustration of how difficult it is to predict the short-term movements of the stock market and how important it is to stay invested. The S&P 500 finished March negative 6.41%. An investor who got scared of the market and sold their holdings would have missed the April 10.5% gain. There are still risks out there, such as the war in the Middle East with the situation of the Strait of Hormuz and the resulting increase in oil prices and the likelihood of inflation going up. Unfortunately, these are risks that are outside the control of us individual investors. Investing comes with risks, and there will always be some sort of risk out there. As they say, there's no free lunch. If you are a long-term investor, stay the course and keep dollar cost averaging on your favorite ETFs, index funds, or stocks, whether the market is up or down. You will end up doing well in the long run. Alright, feel free to leave a comment below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time with another update. Peace out.